Hello and welcome to ETRetail's exclusive curtain raiser series ahead of our flagship e-commerce and digital native summit 2023. Today, we are in conversation with the man who decided to democratize e-commerce and serve Bharat. We have with us the poster boy of e-commerce for all, founder and CEO of Meesho, Vidit Aatrey. Hi Vidit, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Pallavi.
So with it, the theme of our discussion is Rise of India's Digital Economy. And with Meesho, you have been serving the hinterlands of the country. First, I want to get the ground reality check from you. Has online finally made its place in the heart of Bharat?
No, it's a very good question. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I think we are getting there. If I look at, we started the company Meesho about 8 years ago. And the reason we started this was, if you look at India, the real Indian economy is the small business economy. About 85% of all sales that happens via them, which is mostly unbranded, long tail, right? And like most of the e-commerce models before that did not serve for that particular audience. We really built a platform which is India's true marketplace, enables all kinds of small businesses across the country to come list their products and sell it to consumers. And today I would say we have about 140 million people who are transacting on Meesho on an annual basis, and 60% plus of them come from tier 4 cities and below, right? I don't think that was something that people could imagine. People always thought that e-commerce is a very tier 1 thing. It's a metro thing and you don't see beyond. People outside will only buy offline. I'm saying all those kind of stereotypes that people have, I believe are gone. And I believe that we're still getting there. If you look at overall e-commerce penetration in India is still about 6%. Whereas if you see China is about 35-40%, all the Western markets, Europe, US are at about 25%. So India's journey is just getting started, but looking at whatever has happened the last 8 years, like, I think we are very excited like of what we can really achieve in democratizing internet commerce for everyone. And everyone means all kinds of small businesses, consumers, everyone.
Wonderful. So, Vidit, as per estimates, India's digital economy is set to become 1 trillion by 2026. How big this opportunity do you think is for regional brands or regional entrepreneurs of the country?
Yeah, I think it's a very big one. And if you look at the beautiful thing about the digital economy is it is a very level playing field for most people. Like earlier, you had to build your own distribution. You had to reach like that tier 5, tier 6 city. If you look at Meesho today, we have distribution in Leh Ladakh, in Lakshadweep, in Andaman Nicobar, like places that were very hard to serve for any brand or an entrepreneur beforehand. It was impossible for you to kind of build distribution through general trade, modern trade, anything. Now that's possible. You can just come and get listed on Meesho and be served to such consumers. And I believe that's a once in a lifetime opportunity for all kinds of entrepreneurs and brands in India. You can really serve these consumers, and you're talking about 2030. By 2030, this 140 million people would be closer to a billion, right? So the kind of scale I'm talking about and the kind of distribution in very, very deep pockets in the country, I believe will open up lots of opportunities for all kinds of brands, for all kinds of like entrepreneurs, even beyond like brand kind of segment. Like if you're building a logistics company or you are someone who plays in the supply chain segment, right? You today are serving very few industries. Tomorrow you'll be able to participate in the overall digital economy as well. So not just for product brands, but lots of other kinds of entrepreneurs and businesses would be able to participate in the digital economy. So I believe it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and more and more people should jump into it to kind of make it happen.
Wonderful. I think you've set tone for our interaction today. So, as a founder, as an entrepreneur with it, what is that change in mindset do these brands and founders, coming up founders, need to have to build for India and not just metros?
Yeah, by the way, this question has lots of layers. And if you look at Meesho, the big problem that we've been trying to solve for the last 8 years is basically peel off one by layer all of this that exists in the marketplace. So if I look at why were some of these consumers not served earlier, and these are the same problems some of these brands will face, right? Like number one, our country is a very, very heterogeneous country, right? Like the kind of choices people have, the kind of taste people have, the kind of language people speak changes every few kilometers, right? Which means having an app in only one language or having the same kind of selection that everyone who comes to the app sees will never work in a country like India, right? You have to build very personalized experiences that, hey, if I'm opening the app in Chennai or if I'm opening the app in Chandigarh, I should see the app to be very, very different products because what appeals to me is very different. So how do you like really solve for personalization, cater to local tastes? I think is very important if you want to really serve the larger India and not just metros. I believe metros still very homogeneous. People wear same kind of stuff, people speak the same kind of language, but doesn't hold true beyond. Second thing, as I was saying, like content has to be very local. Like you have to speak in people's language. Like you have to build capabilities around, like today Meesho is available in like 10 plus languages. Yeah. And we will keep expanding because if we don't have, we won't be able to speak to all of these guys. Third is cultural nuances. Like for example, we see that India has lots and lots of local festivals and local events, not just the national ones that all of us know. Like a particular city in Kerala celebrates a particular local festival, and during those times they want to buy stuff which is relevant for them, right? If you're just thinking about metros, you'll never be able to identify that opportunity. But an event like that is a great opportunity for you to push a product and say, for this event, why don't you buy something like this? So I believe there are lots of things which I started with that needs to be solved if you want to be a pan-India brand, not just serving the top 4 or 6 or 8 cities. You need to solve for all these nuances that exist in the country. And I believe some of the brands that you're talking about, the entrepreneurs will have to really crack all of this before they can really become successful across the country.
Wow, I think you've set tone for how the future of e-commerce or how the future of commerce will look like in the country. And I believe it's super crucial to solve with vernacular languages, with solving the local context. So yeah, and Meesho has been working on that. Yes. This brings us to the question that there are some limitations and challenges that still exist in the e-commerce segment. What are some key hallucinations that you see right now, and what should be the plan of action for that?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem I feel, like the number one problem, is of affordability. So if you look at India, like beyond the top 50 cities, 70 cities, cost of serving consumer beyond, by the way, starts to keep increasing if you have the same supply chain. But if you see traditionally, you have been able to kind of reach that consumer when you innovate on low cost models, right? You need to figure out how do you get to some of these consumers without spending a lot of money, because you can't make the same amount of money that you make in metro. Like your ARPU, which is sales per consumer, will be lower, which means you need to innovate on low cost models. We need to solve problems around trust and familiarity. Like now I stay in Bangalore and I see people all around me buy everything online. So they're very familiar with everything. Everything means buying, like making the payment online. If something is not ideal, then you can return it easily. Yeah. But as soon as you go into small town cities where people have just started to do it in the last 2-3 years since the pandemic started, people are still very conscious or afraid of everything. That, hey, I ordered this product, if it's not great, I think this return process is a hassle, I will go and buy offline. So how do you innovate on creating an experience which doesn't feel like it's too much of a burden on you? Something like this, trust, familiarity are again lots of big problems. Accessibility around local languages not being available on most apps in India. Most apps are always English first in India. A lot of consumers that you speak to have no idea how to use these apps, right? Like a lot of users in India they don't type, but they want to speak, right? So we see voice search today is about 25% of all searches on the Meesho app. 1/4 of all searches, which means people don't want to type, right? So accessibility of how do you make the product really accessible to them? So I think these are some of the big problems, and I would say we're still very far away from completely solving them, but lots of great progress has been built. And now with AI coming, I believe that new capabilities are possible of solving all these problems, and maybe we'll make a lot more progress using AI around changing languages, making it personalized, right? Speaking a language that the consumer understands and so on. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited by all the possibilities, and that's what we're investing in. In Meesho, a lot of these big projects are something that we're doing across the board. But yeah, I think we are going in the right direction.
Wonderful. You mentioned about AI and large language models of the likes of ChatGPT, of course. How do you think they can revolutionize the way a consumer purchases or shops in India?
Yeah, I think if I knew it, like we would have built it out already. I would suggest that I think everyone right now is in the mode of experimentation, right? Like LLMs have come, that's an amazing technology. Like lots of possibilities open up, but like what exactly will happen, I think we will all see. I believe there are lots of good opportunities in changing search, right? Like today, search is built the old way. You write words and you index all the meta tags that are available in products and try to make sense of it. Now, I think people will be able to write all kinds of queries, and natural language, like all these LLMs, will be able to make sense of it and like give you much better recommendations than what was possible earlier. So I definitely believe that all search experiences of e-commerce 5 years from now would be very different than what you see today. And I believe that should change because of AI. I also believe recommendations, like when you open the app, you would have seen like any shopping app that you use, when you go back again and again, like the kind of stuff they show to you is basis your past history. Recommendations, by the way, will also become 10x better than what they are today, because AI is fundamentally a much better predicting technology, right? Which was not possible earlier. So I believe these are few instances, like content, the kind of content brands put, the kind of photographs they share, merchandising, now with all kinds of stuff that you see, mid-journey, all of this AI, like a lot of more interesting content can be created which will improve conversion, creates excitement among consumers. So I believe these are some possibilities, but still very early. But I think lots of experimentation is happening within Meesho, across the globe, everyone's trying. So I don't think it will be too late before a lot of this comes out in a form that all of us uses on a daily basis. But yeah, I think it will happen soon.
So I take that to build the businesses of tomorrow, brands will really have to invest in tech. I mean, that has to be the core.
I think that has been true for the last 10 years as well, right? Like if you're a brand that is not building tech capabilities, then you are basically building a business of the past, not of the future.
True, wonderful. So when we speak of e-commerce, the penetration has been stuck at 5 to 7%. The Indian retail landscape has been, not just about shopping, but about the entire community building. That's why our local markets have been so popular. What can online businesses learn from these local markets, offline businesses, to go to the deepest pockets of the country?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. And when I go very deep into the country and see like how are they being served, like something which I was just referring to, which is affordability and low cost models, is something which we'll have to really solve. Like if you see a company like HUL in the past built like distribution to the smallest of kirana in villages, and they're selling these small price point products like a Lifebuoy in a very small form, and they still made money, right? So getting distribution to such a remote point, so the cost of logistics will be very high, right? Like distribution will be very high, your price points are small, and they still made the economics work. I think we need all those kinds of innovation to kind of really happen. If we have to learn some of these learnings from the past of how offline retail enabled all of this, I think we'll have to learn the same thing. And I believe we are getting there, right? Like the cost of logistics, there are lots and lots of innovation that is happening in the cost of supply chain, in the cost of logistics. We at Meesho are investing in a lot of that, right? The cost of the product, like making product travel lesser number of distances. Can we build local economies, right? As you said, a local seller would be able to serve this consumer at a much lower pricing because the product does not travel in trucks or planes for very large distances. It's produced locally. So can we build more local marketplaces than national marketplaces today, right? That will reduce cost a lot. I think these are some of the things that we need to kind of do, and a lot of them have been done successfully in the offline world by lots of companies. But I think we'll get there. We'll get there. It will just take some time. India is not an easy country to do business in, right? Like India has lots of very different challenges. But if you see the kind of pace that e-commerce has taken, especially in the last 10 years, it's been amazing. So I think we will get from the 6% to 20% maybe in the next decade, and we'll be able to do it through a lot of innovation around cost structures.
Wonderful. And I think what you mentioned about local markets, I think Kiranas are the perfect case study for that. They've solved logistics, they've been resilient, and community building, trust. So they've just ticked marked on all the factors.
Correct.
Yeah. Great. Just one last question with it. For the next generation of digital leaders that come in, What's that one quality that will help them survive and thrive in this, cutting edge competitive environment?
I don't know if I'm the right person to kind of give recommendation around that. I would just suggest that staying at the forefront of technology is very important, along with staying very close to the consumer, right? Like if I look back in the last 10 years, that's what we have done. Like we may not have the most amount of capital, right? But we just made sure that we have access to the most amount of insights about our consumer as compared to anyone else. So building that culture of being user first, staying close to your users, like building very India specific models, which we have done from the beginning, I think that's what makes it work. But every business has very different kind of challenges, and if you have the right entrepreneur coupled with the right market, it works. So I don't think there's any short way of making it happen, but these are some of the things that I believe improve your chances of becoming successful and building a business that works in India, like pan India, not just in few cities.
Okay, wonderful. I think we've covered all our questions, and thank you so much for your time with it. It was
Thank you
a
so
pleasure
much.
talking to you.
No, same. Thanks so much.
Thank you.